Okay, cool. So I think this is recording now, and we'll get into it. Ayurveda literally translates to the science of life, which is beautiful. And there's sometimes a misconception that Ayurveda is just like a vegan diet, pretty much. And it gets very like meshed up and confused with yoga in general, where Patanjali wrote the eight limb approach, Raja Yoga, to enlightenment, to liberation. But he also wrote a text on Ayurveda, which is on the elements and how we relate to the elements, and that has to do with food, of course, but even the practices that we do are going to either activate certain elements or balance certain elements and so forth. So it's not necessarily the same thing, but they do work really well together, in the sense that, you know, we all want to be strong and healthy and live long lives for the most part. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But for the most part, that's what we want to do. And Ayurveda is a science that is there to help us cure disease, cure imbalances, strengthen the body, have a balanced mind so that we can go ahead and work and raise families and just feel good while we're doing things, but also so that we're strong and healthy to do the practices. If that's something you want to do, like go deeper into the spiritual aspect of life, then you practice yoga. But in order to follow Ayurveda, you don't have to be a yogi, you don't have to be vegan and all those things. So just wanted to start off with that because people kind of just pair them a little bit too much. But in order to really understand the philosophy of Ayurveda, it is important to understand the that Hinduism and Hindu philosophy and yogic philosophy is very much intertwined with Ayurveda because of something called the three gunas, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas. So everything that we have here in this material world falls into one of these three categories. It's either sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. And everything that is material is that. And then there's something called the Purusha, which is like consciousness or spirit, that which is formless, beyond cause and effect, which means that it doesn't do anything and nothing can happen to it. It is pretty much untouchable. And we can see that as a form that can be used as like the word God, spirit, but then there's the Prakriti, which is the material. It's everything that is impermanent, where the Purusha is permanent. It's known as the feminine. It's where things are manifested. It's the source of form and the creative force in action. So one, it depends what your worldviews are and stuff like that. Like, is the Purusha better? Is Prakriti necessary for us to get to know what is formless and so forth? And I mean, that's for the yoga, the going more into the spiritual philosophy of it all. But for this just kind of simple introduction to Ayurveda, we're going to think about the fact that we live in a material world, where you can see, where you can touch, where you can feel, where you can smell, and there's an intelligence, a cosmic intelligence that's moving through this world as well. Like the fact that the seasons know when to do their thing, the flowers know when to bloom, the sun knows when to come up, the animals know when to, how to be parents and all these things. There's some sort of cosmic intelligence that's going on here. And out of that, there is this sense of, well, through in all of this, this is me, this is who I am, like the ego, which can be called the ahamkar. So, pertaining to all the things that are here, we have sattva, raja, and tamas. And when we talk about food, the kind of activity that you do, the quality of your thoughts, your actions, it's going to fall into one of these categories. And I think that just simply having an awareness of these three different categories can give us some sort of guidance on what am I doing? What are the qualities that I am interacting with on a daily basis? So, sattvic qualities are that which is seen as pure, as peaceful, as very vital, very alive. Like, for example, an extremely ripe fruit is seen as sattvic. Um, Meditation, I mean, unless you're bugging out in your meditation practice, but the goal of meditation is to cultivate this sattvic nature and connect to this sattvic energy. So that's the vibe with the sattva, and there's the different sense faculties associated with it, motor organs, and the ways that the mind acts and cognition. So there's that, and then there's rajas, which is the energy of action, of dynamic movement, of just doing. And I like to always use like coffee as an example of something that's rajastic. Like coffee is stimulating and it can help you feel energized, and it brings all this movement into your mind and your heart. Um, and then there's tamas, which is like the rotted fruit. So from this sattvic state, the apple, there's the rajasic energy that's needed for that apple to even grow and for the tree to even grow. And then, even a tree at some point it'll die. So that's the tamas. So this is like a cycle. Everything goes through this cycle. Tamasic is also the energy that's needed for sleeping. So, for example, when I go on the my meditation retreats that we're meditating over 8 hours a day, sitting or at least trying to meditate 8 hours a day, and we're really mindful on how we're using our energy. You're not supposed to go on like sprints, and you're not like just buzzing your mind with taking information, scrolling on your phone every day. So there's this retention of energy. You're not having sex, you're not doing drugs, you're eating certain things on these retreats, where there's this phenomenon where a lot of us like don't really sleep at night. Like we're not really tired. There's this certain energy of wakefulness that we experience, and that's like the sattvic energy. And we're also not trying to go too much into the rajas. Again, this is why you're not really going on these big runs and stuff like that, or exercising vigorously during the practice. So there's just phenomenon that like the tamasic energy gets lowered, and like the dullness that we might feel and all that, like there's almost like a glow to you after these kind of meditation retreats. So tamasic energy is part of life. Everything is born, everything dies, because that is the law of the material realm of the Prakriti. Where now these three gunas, these three different states, do not pertain to the Purusha, because the Purusha is beyond cause and effect. So now that we got the three gunas in there, also tamasic energy can be described as darkness and ignorance and inertia, and also things that are stagnant. Like, for example, McDonald's burger that has so many preservatives and chemicals in it. Like it doesn't mold, it doesn't go bad because it's kind of dead already. Where really ripe, hydrated, juicy fruit can just mold and can go into that process with pretty pretty quick. All right. Even like, those super GMO foods, they don't even mold and get gnarly as quick as the organic stuff. All right, so those are the three gunas. We'll keep that in mind as we move on. So then we have the doshas that are also pertaining to the material, to this world. And if you've ever heard of, your dosha or your body type in Ayurveda, we have a predominant makeup, predominant elements that we have, and also just depending on our age and our lifestyle and stuff like that, like these can start to vary. But we have all of them. Everything is made out of the five elements, and we have to have all five elements within our bodies to just be alive in general. But the doshas and these categories that you see here of vata, pitta, kapha, they are more so speaking about what are the predominant parts about you, and then you're broken into those categories. And what actually determines your body type or your dosha is at the moment of conception, whatever you were like, where your parents were like, what they were eating, um, the season in which the moment of conception happened, what their mood was like, what their activities were like. If it was in the summer, hot, fiery summer, and they eat a lot of spicy food and were working a lot, and maybe they were in a very frustrating part of their life, and they'd be a very fiery baby. Or if it was in the spring and it was cold and damp, and they were maybe just resting a lot during that time and eating lots of sweet foods, and you'd predominantly be kapha. Or if it was dead of winter and they meditate a lot and were fasting, then it would be predominantly vata, ether, and air. So that's what determines what's going on. So, um, with these three categories, you could also see it as kind of like evolution being part of this. So, in order for you to have um, a bed in your bedroom, you need the bedroom, you need the space for the bed to be in there. In order for you to even have a house, you need the land, you need the space that's going to hold that house. So space comes first because of that. Ooh, let's go back. This just skipped forward. Okay, so you need the space in order for all these other elements to be able to exist and to be held and contained within that space. So first there's space. And through that space, there's movement, which is air, and air is very much associated with like sound, for example. You can hear the air. And with movement in that space, with the air, now there is friction and there's fire with the different um, temperature, fire, and the movement of the energy within that space. Now there's like condensation and there's water. And water in Ayurveda is a little different than what we might think of just like smooth liquid. Water is like a binding agent. And you can think of that, for example, with like rice, all the grains are dry and separate. But once you cook it with water, it's like sticky. And if you cook it for a long time, it'll be like a porridge almost. Same thing with oatmeal. Um, Dry grains, add water, now it's all sticky and dense and it binds together. So the water is this binding agent which creates earth and gives life to earth and to plants and so forth. So these are the three doshas, and you could also see them represented in just life, like as we grow. So like as we're babies, we're predominantly kapha, earth and water. And we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the doshas, but um, when we're babies, we're now running around, we're now working, we're not figuring things out, we're not even eating much other than like sweet, fatty milk. And we're just kind of laying down, chilling. And those are some qualities which we'll talk more about of kapha, this building of matter, this building of your body, of your structure. And then once we get into, like young adult life, where we're striving, we're working, we're figuring ourselves and our place out in the world, we're moving around. And that has to do with the pitta, the fire, the action. And then once we start getting older, especially like around menopause and mid 50s and so forth, you can even see it like the skin starts drying out and we literally start to wither away. And then we go back into the space, we go back into the air. So this represents, the cycles of life, but it also represents the creation of life in general. Okay, so this is a quiz where you can find out your dosha specifically. So with this test, you would be asked questions around your appetite, your mood, the activities you favor and the things that you don't really like, how your quality of sleep is, your physical frame, is your hair thick or is it really thin, and light? Is your mind really overactive or does it lean more towards dullness? And that will determine your dosha. So for the Ayurvedic reset I'm doing next month for 30 days, we'll go over specifically what your dosha is, and then we'll get a little more like detailed into your body type, and we would have like a moment of one-on-one to talk a little bit about that. But yeah, you can look up an Ayurvedic quiz and be certain on what your dosha is. I'm going to go through the doshas a little bit more, and maybe just by me talking about them, you might have a sense of what resonates and, what works with you the most and where you see yourself the most. So Vata dosha, air and ether, it's the energy of movement and just kinetic energy. The word vata literally means to move, and you can think like even if the air is really still, it's never actually still. It's always moving somehow. And if, you literally were completely still, that means that your heart isn't bumping anymore and that your circulation totally stopped. That means you're dead. So, um, this energy is very important to keep us alive. And of course, it has to do with the breath as well, but it also has to do with um all the movements of the body and the mind and the senses. When your mind is really overactive, that can lead to like anxiety and just overthinking. But also if your mind is just the currents are too still, then that can be dullness and lack of creativity. Like the movement of the mind helps us solve problems, for example. So it also has to do with the senses and the process of elimination. You can see that in we have different winds with Vata in the system of Ayurveda, where um, when you're peeing, it's a downward wind. The pee has to come out. When you're bleeding, it's a downward wind. If you're breathing out, exhaling from your lungs, there's an energy that needs to be pulled up and out of your lungs to come out. So there's all these different winds that when they're out of whack or out of balance, it could be a problem. Like if you're constipated, that means that there's an issue with that wind there. If you aren't bleeding, then you would want to tend to this vata energy because there isn't enough of that flow going down, or there could be too much of the wind going down and have really heavy periods, for example. So the qualities to vata are that of dryness, coldness, light, irregular, quick, mobile, rough. And the dryness can really manifest in like constipation, for example, if you have like excess vata or dryness in the skin. And you can see how these all can all play together where like if you have um oily skin, then you would want to have more of this dry quality. So these qualities are we're going beyond bad or good. It's just what it is and actually getting to know ourselves. We know how to work with these qualities within foods, within herbs, within activities, with more intelligence and intention. The irregularity we can see in the personality of Vata people. Sometimes they can have a really big appetite, sometimes they can go a long time without eating, sometimes they're really thirsty, sometimes they're not. Also with just when we think about air, mobile movement, Vata people don't necessarily like staying still. They like moving around a lot. They're the kind of people that will be like, moving their finger or like bouncing their foot all the time. Or dropping from one job to another job, one friend group to another friend group. Like it's not really easy to have like consistency and discipline, which is why discipline and routine is really good for them to create balance. Um, the season of Vata is late autumn and early winter. And the time of the day, there's something called an Ayurvedic clock, is from 2 to 6 a.m. and then it recycles again from 2 to 6 p.m. The phase of life is old age, and the seat of the dosha in the body is the large intestine, the pelvic cavity, the bones, the skin, the ears, and thighs. So when there's severe imbalances with vata, it can even lead to like tinnitus and like ear ringing, things like that. Um, Joint issues, dryness, cracking, popping, like weak bones. And we see that when we get old also. A lot of people when they get old, and just break bones very easily, especially in the pelvic cavity, or start to lose their hearing, for example. So that's Vata dosha. Usually, the way that a predominantly Vata person looks is really long and thin. The skin is a little more thin as well. You can like kind of test your skin. You could do it to different people. Like if you pinch your wrist, if it's like a thick chunk and it's not like very like stringy, it's more like kapha kind of skin. But Vata, it's just a lot thinner. Um, and then there's gifts to that, like the movement in the mind. Like these people have really good energy, can like, be good adventurers, explorers, very creative, can be very psychic as well, very intuitive. Uh, yeah, and then some of the issues too are just like being a little anxious or actually like delusional. There's just so much going in the mind that they kind of lose their grip on reality a bit when there's like a lot of imbalancing, like things like schizophrenia. So that's the Vata vibe. Now we move on to Pitta. This is the energy of transformation and thermal energy. It's the fire and the water. It means to burn. And in the body, it's responsible for heat in general, energy production, the metabolism, and all the digestive functions in the digestive fire, which is so important. The particular qualities are that of oiliness, hot, light, intense, sharp, fluid, liquid, and acidic. And you can see these things mentally, emotionally, even physically. Like Pitta people are prone to having more oily skin, which can lead to having more like acne. They can have a lot more heat in the body, which can lead to things like acne also, but also rashes, and just feeling really hot. Um, the quality of lightness as well, which they carry in being very like active, and they're awesome. Pitta dominant people are usually very like active in the sense of running and playing sports and working out and just like having an active lifestyle in general. The energy of acidity, so sometimes this can come up as like acid reflux and such. Um, and because Pitta people, have this fire in which lives in the digestive tract and the metabolism, they have a strong stomach. Like they can just eat more things and burn through it with more ease than, like, for example, a kapha person. And because of that too, like if that fire is too strong, it can be hard for them to really like extract the nutrients that are necessary and can lead more towards things like diarrhea, for example, like liquidy stools and such. Um, and just the energy of hotness, it can also manifest as like agitation and aggravation, annoyance. So this dosha tends to lean more towards those types of moods, and also competitiveness. The season is late summer and spring, so we're in Pitta season now. So you're all pissed off and hot. It's normal, but there's things you can do about it. The time of day is 10 to 2 a.m. and then 10 to 2 p.m., which we can feel that, like at 10 to 2 p.m., we usually have more energy than like early morning. We usually want to eat our biggest meal. We feel most hungry during that time. And then if you ever notice, like the 10 to 2 a.m. mark, if you end up staying up past 10, there's kind of like this wave of energy that comes up. Like usually we get a little drowsy, sleepy around 8, 9. Um, but then, which is kapha hour, but then like if you stay up past that, you just kind of can just stay up, maybe even all night. Pitta people do like staying up all night. The life phase is adulthood and also the metabolism. And the seat of the dosha in the body is the small intestine, the stomach, sweat glands, the blood, fat, eyes, and skin. And we can see that even like, when like if you go to hot yoga, for example, your eyes can be all bloodshot. Or if you are having a fever, or if you are running, like, your skin gets flushed. So that's what this means by like skin. Like you can actually see this element in your skin. Um, and sweat, Pitta people usually are the ones that sweat the most, and the smell can be a little more like sour compared to other people. All right, so now moving, and as far as body frame, Pitta people usually have more of like an active body frame, like they can easily get the abs, no problem. All right, now we're going on to kapha. So kapha is the energy of stability and potential energy, elements of earth and water, and it means to stick. In the body, it's responsible for physical stability. You can even think of the word like to stick. Like if you're hypermobile, all loosey goosey, your joints can literally pop out of their place, and um we want to have a certain, like, we want to be flexible. We also want to be sturdy in our body, or things can just kind of fall apart. So the kapha energy is keeping it all together. It's responsible for proper body structure, resistance, and fluid balance. The qualities are oily, cold, heavy, stable, dull, viscous, smooth, and dense. You can see this in a few different ways. Even one way is even like in the stool in a kapha person, usually very smooth or oily poop. Can tend to be a little bit more on the cold side and be more sensitive to cold, which can lead to like literally getting colds and like mucus and stuff like that. Dullness. So out of all the doshas, this is like the calmest um personality. But with like the calmness and the sweetness of this personality can also come like dullness and stagnation, which can lead to like depression. Um, and this dense energy of just feeling so heavy. So like a kapha person wants to really bring in the vata, the movement, the lightness, the heat, the pitta to kind of lighten some of this excess dense energy that can happen in imbalances. So the seats of and the time of day is 6 to 10 a.m. and 6 to 10 p.m. That's why sometimes like 6 a.m. we can feel a little more tired, a little more dull, but like it's harder to kind of stay in bed past 10. There's just some sort of awakening energy. It's late winter and early spring, which we see a lot of the issues in early spring manifest in the different seats of this dosha in the body, which is the chest, the throat, the head, sinuses, nose, mouth, stomach, joints, plasma, and mucus. So, like things like flus and colds and nasal infections and sinus infections, sinus stagnation, and all that gets triggered by the cold. But also, we really see those kinds of things like allergies and such happen in the spring and even in the winter, too. All right. So, those are the three doshas. And as far as body type with kapha, usually they're just more like the heavy, sturdier, like when we use the word like big bone, big bone kind of frame of people, and their hair is usually a lot more thick. Skin is a little thicker. Yeah, it's kind of their physical appearance. So perhaps one of those resonated more than the other one, or maybe all three resonate a lot. When you take the quiz, you'll see, or if you learn more about Ayurveda and like specifically for you, you'll see that you can be like Vata Pitta or Pitta Kapha or Kapha Pitta. Like you can have more than one, but just one would have the most. And I've worked with many people doing like Ayurvedic plans for them. And there's been a number of times where people are like pretty even with all of them. So it just has to do something with what their parents were doing that they came out pretty even. Okay, so we'll go into not too much, but some things that are balancing for Vata if it felt like maybe some of those things are things you're struggling with or imbalanced in or just resonate more with this dosha. So to keep Vata in balance, you want to favor sweet, sour, and salty tastes and avoid bitter, pungent, and astringent foods, like really spicy foods, for example. All dairy products are great for Vata. Things that are like a little bit more on that mucousy, fatty side are really beneficial for Vata because of its very light, airy nature. Um, in Ayurveda, we always want to boil the milk before drinking it, and to drink it warm, you can add a little pinch of cardamom and dry ginger in it to just amplify some of those warming qualities that are really important for Vata, and especially in the winter. So I don't really drink dairy any other time other than the winter because I know how balancing it can be for Vata dosha, which, regardless of what you are in your body, the seasons, the elements will affect you. So it's I've never been like a fiery person, and I remember when I was doing flower farming, just ripping it out all day long, working so hard in the sun, and I was in a really like stressful part of my life, just so agitated, like arguing with someone like every day. Um, my pitta was like crazy, and I started getting all these pitta imbalance issues like for the first time in my life. Like I will get diarrhea. I was starting to get rashes. I was like really insensitive to oily. I was sensitive to oily foods and such, and I never experienced that in that kind of way. So for that first time in my life, I was like specifically eating and doing things that I knew would balance pitta dosha. So as we go through seasons, it's nice to think about just bringing some of these things in for yourself just to prevent some imbalances. some fruits and veggies that are really great that, kind of represent that sweetness, and those qualities of more dense nourishment are like avocado, butternut squash, sweet potatoes, mangoes, dates, for example. You can just like see the quality in that. Um, Different nuts, seeds, and legumes. Most nut butters are cool, and nut milks and juices are okay for Vata dosha. And for all the doshas, you don't want to really have like cold drinks anyways, but especially like just warming teas. Tulsi tea is really great. Chais that are like gentle are really great, and just always room temperature water. Okay, so could always pause this and look a little bit more at these food suggestions here. All right. So just going into some of the symptoms that can come up with vata imbalances, you might notice something here that resonates with you are anxiety attacks, palpitations during the morning, a lot of gassiness. Remember, it's air qualities, a lot of farting, excessive dryness in the skin, chapped skin, lips, long headaches, sudden joint pain, neck pain, back pain, insomnia is a huge one. Behavioral symptoms would be feeling like restless, can't just chill out, relax, hard to have eye contact, sudden emotional outbursts, finding faults with others, destroying relationships, refusing to be flexible, abnormal quietness, not eating for a long time. And some of the psychological symptoms are doubting everything, also like extreme paranoia with that, erratic thoughts, thought over here, thought over there that don't really relate to each other, having severe insecurities about yourself, thinking everyone's judging you, sad or depressing thoughts, not feeling wholesome, and emotional detachment. Okay, so now going on to Pitta, which, we're in the summer now, so it's nice to think about what's going on here. So during the season, we really want to favor sweetness, bitter, and astringent tastes, which are cooling and refreshing, such as fresh vegetables, and fresh fruits like watermelons. Leafy greens are really nice during this time as well. Rice, quinoa, spelt, barley, oats, certain milks. You want to have milks that aren't like too fermented. Ghee is always wonderful. Foods rich in the bitter taste, including different kinds of greens like kale, for example. And for pizza, you want to avoid those that are particularly spicy and very heating because we already have that heat. So like I love hot sauce, but I like only have it like once a month or like um no more than like every 2 weeks during the summer. And there's something really nice about like honoring what's going on right now and like your environment and your season instead of just like, I don't know, having the same stuff all the time. So like by the time that, winter is coming, fall is coming, I'm so excited to have like my really warming butternut squash ginger with like a little cayenne soup. It's like something I look forward to. And this season, I'm enjoying all the watermelon. I don't buy watermelon in the winter or at other places. It doesn't even taste as good. So there's something to like having excitement and freshness and newness coming in every season. So this season we're avoiding spiciness, sharp and sour things like garlic, green chilies, radishes, onions, and mustard greens. Also chocolate can be a little harmful during this time. And a way to see these pitta imbalances, and also, like, I mean, I just had a whole bunch of cacao the other day, and I know it's not great for pitta, but I also don't feel any pitta imbalances in my body right now. And I'm also being very mindful, not having hot sauce all the time. So I'm not in this place where my pitta is out of control. I'm making sure that I do relaxing, soothing practices. I go to the river, cool myself down that way so that I can be in a balanced place where if I have a little chocolate, it's not going to like run me over the edge. So a lot of these things, it's not like don't ever do this or don't ever eat this ever again. It's just like, especially if you have an imbalance, like be mindful. Okay. So for the mind, that is experiencing a pitta imbalance, there's a tendency to be really hostile and angry and excessively controlling, very impatient, a tendency to exert excessive effort to achieve goals, like very competitive, and will like burn yourself out to achieve that goal. Passion or emotion blurs the powers of intellectual discernment. Be very judgmental and jealous, arrogant, egotistical, overly competitive, and the need for attention and being just excessively loud and extroverted. Um, in the body, it looks like excessive body heat, digestive problems, vision difficulties, like glaucoma, for example, inflammation in the body, the joints, diarrhea, ulcers and GI disorders, excessive thirst, skin disorders like rashes and acne, and hepatitis and liver disorders. And then for kapha, we want to favor foods that are dry or moist or oily because those are the qualities that kapha carries. So for example, instead of oatmeal, you would eat granola. Kapha's oiliness is offset by exceptionally drying foods like beans, white potatoes, dried fruits, rice cakes, popcorn, and occasional glass of dry red or white wine. When cooking, it is important to use as little oil as possible, and specifically like specific oils. Like for example, what is the oil I'm thinking about? Like corn oil, if you could get good quality corn oil, is like extremely light in its quality, so it would be really great for kapha, as opposed to like avocado oil is a lot more fattier, so it wouldn't be the best for kapha. So these are some foods that are really good for balancing kapha dosha, and you can kind of see those qualities in like, you want things that are light, for example, and a little more dry. Um, like leafy greens, dark leafy greens, Brussels sprouts are very dry, especially if you like roast them, for example. And as far as the sweets, you don't want the fruits, you don't want things that are too sweet. So like apples, berries are fine, but like mango would be not recommended for kapha. Okay. And we want to avoid things that are too sweet, like I mentioned, things that are too fatty, too heavy, like lots of eggs, lots of dairy. And if you are gonna have dairy, you'd want to like spice it in a specific way as well. So out of all the doshas, kapha does the best with a like light vegetarian diet, where like vata does not really do like they need like those more heavy fats and such. But as far as like if someone was gonna be vegan, it would be kapha dosha. Or if there was a severe imbalances in kapha dosha, like a vegan diet would be really good. So minimizing all animal flesh to balance kapha, minimizing eggs, fried foods, especially just so oily and just harder to digest. And one thing that happens with like the dampness of kapha is that it dampens the digestive system. So it makes it harder to digest and process things that are a little heavier and fattier and oilier. Avoiding nuts, all kinds of dairy, like for example, banana, so sweet, so mushy. That's the opposite of the quality we want. Heavy desserts and root vegetables, except for carrots. I don't have the list here of the common kapha imbalances, but some of the main things are like diabetes, high cholesterol, depression, mood issues, obesity. Those are the main things that come up with kapha dosha imbalances. Yeah, so when thinking about I want to, balance myself and my qualities that I feel are really predominant right now, then you can think about the gunas. So, for example, if vata is very dry and light and cold, and you're having those imbalances that I listed, then you'd want to come in and bring some of more of the dense, the heavy, the slowness. So that might be like for vata dosha, doing practices like yin yoga would be really beneficial, very slow and good for the joints, good for the bones. Having like sweet potatoes, foods that are a little bit more dense and sweet to come in and balance out those qualities of vata. And for example, for kapha being um, cold, heavy, dense, doing things that are hot, heating in nature, foods that are heating in nature, things that are bringing that mobile quality. So like vinyasa yoga, going for a run, going for like a brisk walk is really good for lightening that very like static energy that kapha can run itself into, and that stickiness as well. And for pitta, that sharp quality, and this very also mobile, oily. So to bring in some like sweetness is really good for pitta dosha. Some like gentleness is really good for it also. And that might look like just taking a rest day. Pitta should take naps too. All right. So this is the Ayurvedic clock I mentioned a little bit. If you're into like creating cool routines for yourself, you might enjoy working with this a bit and seeing how this all cycles. So from 6 to 10 a.m. to kind of work with that very dense energy, it's good to get up. One like Ayurvedic trick that has worked for me forever, like the best out of anything in the world, is to take a shower as soon as I wake up. The the coolness, the movement of just getting my butt up and into the shower, I'm like awake. I'm good to go. I can do whatever I need to do after that. Even just splashing some cold water in your face is really good. Getting up, using the bathroom during this time, really important. It's also great to get up and drink some warm water to start getting the digestive system moving, which will help the elimination and just prepare for the day. It's a good time to do exercise as well. And then from 10 to 2 p.m., you don't want to do exercise. You don't want to bring more heat in that in there because it's already the fieriest part of the day. So instead, it's good to do some planning, to do some work, and to get your heaviest meal of the day in. It's when the metabolism is the strongest. So from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., we have Vata hour, which is the air, the movement. It's really good to use this like nice wind to communicate, to do some more gentle movement, to do some socializing, and have our last meal by that time. As we recycle now 6 to 10 p.m. Back into kapha, where that like slowness starts to come back in. It's a good time to just prepare for the night, kind of start disconnecting from action, come back to rest so that we are ready to go to sleep by 10 p.m. and get our deepest quality of sleep during this time and our deepest healing during that time. And then from 2 to 6, we go back into Vata hour where the sleep starts to lighten. And traditionally, like from 4, 5, 6 a.m. is a really great time to meditate and take advantage of like that ethereal, spacious quality that connects us to spirit. And it's also just like so quiet during that time. It's easier to meditate. Um, One thing I really that changed my life with Ayurveda, because I was vegan for 10 years. And at some points, I always ran into like these crazy digestive issues, even though I was eating like the highest quality things and the wheatgrass and all organic foods and just the best of the best. And I would always be so bloated and have these digestive issues. And it's like painful. And it's because I was just combining all kinds of crazy stuff. Once I started following Ayurveda's rules on not combining certain things together, all those digestive issues, I just don't deal with that anymore. I'm not vegan anymore, but when I am eating a salad or lots of vegetables and stuff, I don't have those same issues anymore, thank goodness. So again, this is something you can like look back at and even screenshot. It's extremely helpful. One of the main ones that are my like go-to things, I never break this rule, is combining fruit with other things like combining fruit in a smoothie with milk, for example, or combining a whole bunch of different fruits together, even like melons, you should never combine with anything else. It creates something called ama, toxins in your system. And those toxins start to really deplete your digestive fire. And once your digestive fire is shot, your immune system is shot. And then once your immune system is shot, digestive system is shot, the accumulation and the overload of toxins can then start leading into different infections and diseases. So, a way to not tax the digestive fire and actually just strengthen it instead is to not combine these things so that your system is constantly in a nice flow and just keeps building itself instead of like killing itself. So no melons with anything else, no vegetables with fruits together, no grains or dairy with fruits. Just if you're gonna have fruits, eat the fruits. You can mix berries together, that's fine. You know, you could go more in detail in it. This is just a very simple one. For the Ayurvedic reset, you'll really be deeply taught about the food combinations and such, and also have recipes so that you're not stressed out like, oh God, what am I supposed to combine? But you'll have recipes so you'll know what things go well together and just use that as inspiration as well. Hey, and then beans, you don't want to combine with cheese. You don't want to combine with meat either, which was a hard one for me for a while, or with fish. It's kind of like if you're going to have beans as your protein, that's your protein. Don't mix anything else with it. As far as milk, you don't want to mix it with meat or beans or fruits, bread, you know, there's a lot you don't want to mix it with either. All right, so we'll move on here. Those are the main ones that I really try not to mess with. And you don't want to mix starchy vegetables and grains with proteins like meats or high sugar foods either. And this is just going through the seasons. So all this, one suggestion I give, because this, I mean, this is your first time hearing this, it can be a lot of information. I don't even know how long I've been talking for. It's been almost an hour. So, um, don't let it overwhelm you. One thing that I find super helpful is taking it season by season. Like, what season is it now? Okay, it's fire and water. It's pitta season. What are the qualities that are here? What is the medicine that's here? You know, like in the summer, we have just so much more energy. We like our mood is a little bit more uplifted. We're a bit more animated. We're not as dull. Unless you burn yourself out because you're trying to go on all the hikes and all the parties and do all the things because the sun doesn't go out until 8. But that's medicine in it too. It shows you how to slow down, how to cultivate some balance with your routines, how to not overextend yourself, how to not burn yourself out. So every season, you just want to sit with that. What is the medicine there? How am I relating to it? What are the seasonal foods? And especially if you like, I'm so lucky I live where I live because there's farms everywhere. I get to see the strawberries growing now. You know, like it's much easier to eat in season, but you could always Google what are the seasonal foods in summer, you know, in my area, and try to choose those when you go to the grocery store instead of things that like are just not growing right now, like corn, you know, about to start popping off soon, for example, eat a bunch of corn. Because whatever is in season is, again, there's this intelligence, this cosmic intelligence in the world that knows that's what the qualities that we need right now, you know, like how watermelons grow in the summer and they're like the best of the best food to eat in the summer. It's so hydrating, it's sweet, it's cooling as well, the cooling properties in it. So that's my suggestion to take it season by season and don't worry about all the other doshas. Think about your dosha. So you can take the quiz, you can do the Ayurvedic reset together, and you'll be really guided and supported through that to see like what is your unique makeup and how are you relating to the season. So go into studying your dosha. What are the foods that are good for you? What are the foods that you should be avoiding for you? And of course, if you're like, oh God, I gotta Google that, then come to the reset. I got you. And just take it from there. For about a year and a half, I only thought about what my dosha was, what are the things that are my qualities, and how do I balance them. And then I just took it season by season. And then before you know it, a year later, you actually really took your time, you know, connecting to each season and seeing how you're relating to it and noticing how different things in your life that come in and out influence that as well. So don't get overwhelmed by it. All right, so that is just a little intro on this very deep world of Ayurveda, and it really does support just mental health, emotional health, physical health. There's so many people that have been able to heal chronic diseases, you know, with this, and then there's the whole herbal part of it, the whole medicine part of it on different like techniques and purification methods. For example, like there's putting of the rose water in the eye, there's the neti pot of draining the sinuses out. So there's so much to it, but this just gives you a little basic understanding of like where those practices and stuff are coming from, and just considering the qualities of these practices and the qualities of just who we are and what's going on. So for the Ayurvedic reset, there'll be different modules, different recipes. It's like a whole online portal where you'll have all these different resources. And I love yoga, so yoga will be part of that also. Different yoga sequences curated to balance certain doshas and for certain seasons and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up for that through my website. I can share a little more info if you have any questions on that as well. And yeah, thanks so much for being here and listening and being a part of this. And I hope we get to connect into this world a little more some other time as well.